With Lucasfilm Games recently announced and the exclusive license EA had with Star Wars games now no longer in effect, the world of Star Wars games can expand in a way that we've been wanting to ever since EA took over. The prospect is almost daunting. The potential for a variety of Star Wars games is nearly limitless, and now we might actually see that play out. Despite the numerous and varied library of games under the Star Wars license, including platformers, action-adventure games, puzzles, RPGs, mobile games, and shooters, one genre, to this day, has not been filled properly by an actual good game: the fighting game genre. Which is odd, because one might expect that to be the best genre after shooters to fit the Star Wars license. To date, there are only a select few fighting games in the Star Wars gaming library, and all but one of them is actually pretty terrible. The only legitimate, traditional fighting game is Masters of Terras Kazi, which came out on the original PlayStation back in 1997, meaning that it has been nearly 24 years since an actual attempt at what should be one of the best medias for Star Wars was made. Besides Masters of Terras Kazi, which was, to put it bluntly, an unbalanced, unpolished, pathetic mess. As you can see from the various footage that I pulled from YouTube, because I am not about to try and dig my old PS1 out of its crypt to jerry-rig it into a connection with my PC to record it. There was an honorable mention in the action-adventure game of Star Wars Episode III Revenge of the Sith, the game. In this game, on occasion, you'd be thrown into a dueling arena against a powerful saber-wielding opponent in a one-on-one showdown that featured simple but effective combos, blocking and deflecting, simple use of force abilities, grabs, basically what you expect from a Star Wars game and a fighting game. And surprisingly, Episode 3 the game was good. It was one of those rare examples of a movie tie-in game actually being pretty decent. It wasn't a gold star game by any means, but I cannot tell you how many hours I spent perfecting blocks and counters in the duel mode using Count Dooku against Mace Windu, or old Ben Kenobi versus General Grievous, or Darth Vader versus Anakin Skywalker. If you wanted a good Star Wars fighting game, Episode 3 was the closest that we probably were ever going to get. But now, here we are in 2021, with a new and exciting future ahead of us for Star Wars games. And one game that I have been arguing to see and dying to play for the longest time has been a fighting game done right in the Star Wars universe. There are a lot of fantastic fighting game studios out there, including Arc System Works, who did the BlazBlue series and Dragon Ball FighterZ, among others. NetherRealm Studios, the makers of Mortal Kombat and the DC Injustice games, and Team Ninja, who worked on Dead or Alive. But there is one studio above all others that I think of when I think a good, solid, potent, powerful fighting game: Namco. Specifically, Project Soul, the team in Namco that focuses exclusively on Soul Calibur. Why Project Soul specifically? Well, it's simple. Few fighting game developers truly get the complexity and design characteristics of a weapon-based fighting game like Project Soul. If you play any of the Soul Calibur games, from Soul Calibur 2 on, you will feel the fine attention to detail in the nuances for each character, the uniqueness and similar but different fighting styles between characters that share weapon types, and a general care with just the simple things involved in the game. Between its in-depth character designs, its powerful pedigree in fighting games, and the fact that it would not be their first attempt at capturing the fun of a Star Wars contest of warriors, since they did do Darth Vader and Galen Merrick, aka the Apprentice, for Soul Calibur 4, I'm purposefully excluding Yoda because there was no way to make him a fair or balanced character. I feel immensely confident that they would be up to the task. And if Disney gave them the funding and greenlight to create a fully scripted and cinematic story, much like NetherRealm did with the Injustice games or Arc Systems did with Dragon Ball FighterZ, they'd be more than capable of creating a complex, interesting, and engaging couple of storylines that focus on some of the most popular characters of the franchise. I myself have my own thoughts on this, and I've already compiled both a roster and a synopsis of how this game would work. Allow me to tell you about it, and afterwards I'll explain in detail some of the elements. The synopsis goes as such. An aspiring Sith from the future, Darth Malefus, has gained access to the world between worlds and is attempting to gain power that could rival the eternal Emperor of the Sith by absorbing the Force from the areas and beings across all time, which is beginning to destabilize the timeline. The 5 Force priestesses, which watch over the Force, have sensed that the cosmic force, which binds the entire universe together, is beginning to suffer, and notice that powerful individuals from across the timeline have been drawn to a planet outside normal space and time, where Darth Malefus has come to reside. They tasked these displaced beings, from both the light and dark side of the Force, with the mission to stop Darth Malefus before the universe itself ceases to exist. That's a synopsis that I've come up with. I think it's actually a pretty compelling story, and would make for an amazing introduction to be able to mishmash the timelines together. To avoid any further damage to the time stream, the Force Priestesses would weaken the energy output of the weapons the fighters battling inside this new Force Nexus, so that their blows are not lethal. After all, killing someone inside the Nexus would not be a good thing, since the entire point is to avoid damaging the time stream further. Also, the Force abilities might be explained to be muted somewhat inside, meaning that while the Force is still usable, it's not going to be as potent or powerful as it normally would, since the Force itself is being attacked by Darth Malefus. I specifically didn't determine whether or not Malefus was going to be a male or female character, or non-binary, or whatever. I don't have any real idea what Malefus would look like, although I would hope that Malefus might be female. Only because of the fact that there aren't very many female Sith Lords out there. And it would be really, really cool to see, like, a final boss character be a female Sith Lord, specifically. For those unsure of what the world between worlds is, it's a realm that sits outside of the normal universe. It was presented in Star Wars Rebels as a series of branching pathways that each lead to different portals, with each portal being connected to a different point in time. Ezra Bridger uses one of these portals to save Ahsoka Tano from Darth Vader on the planet Malachor, and almost alters history by rescuing his mentor Kanan Jarrus from death, although doing so would have resulted in Ezra's own death during the same incident that claimed Kanan's life originally, which would have altered the timeline, erasing the current Ezra Bridger, and probably also erasing Ahsoka Tano, because the current Ezra Bridger wasn't there to save Ahsoka. Time-space alterations are weird. Let's just put it that way. If you ever watched Doctor Who, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, you don't alter the past. That's what I'm trying to get to. But regardless, this is what Darth Malefus is doing, unintentionally or not, by attacking the time stream to gain more power. And, to preserve the timeline, once things have been set right, everything that has transpired would essentially be erased, meaning that the time would resume as it should, and none of the characters should have a memory of what happened, allowing the game to remain as its own pocket dimension, essentially. Although, for those quote-unquote alternate endings, I could potentially see an argument being made for like Darth Sidious acquiring a Sith holocron that he's not supposed to have, something like that. You know, I could see something like that happening. As for the 5 Force Priestesses, people who've watched Season 6 of the Clone Wars will remember them as the beings that guided Yoda in a multi-episode storyline when he went in search of Qui-Gon in the Force. They watch over the living Force, which is what people of the galaxy see in effect with their actions, as well as the cosmic Force, which is the unifying factor that holds the entire universe together. Normally, they're not supposed to get involved with anything, but Darth Malefus is posing enough of a threat to the existence of everything that they must interfere. So, that's basically the entire plotline of this game, and this would allow us to really explore some very interesting interactions, such as Kylo Ren meeting Darth Vader, or Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker being able to meet up with Qui-Gon. I see a lot of potential for something like this, and I would love to be able to see it pan out, because I love mishmash stories like this, such as, you know, anyone who's played like the Dynasty Warrior games, or specifically Dynasty Warrior Gundam games, know that, like, when you start mixing timelines together in a pocket dimension, things can get really weird real quick, and I love that kind of thing, because it's a unique brand of storytelling that really brings out character dynamics that you wouldn't see normally. Speaking of characters, however, I have come up with a small roster of characters. Actually, it's not a small roster. It's a pretty sizable roster for a fighting game. And all these characters could potentially be introduced and implemented in different ways, because there are a lot of things you could do with these characters, since there are 7 different lightsaber forms. And I do have a few other characters that fall outside of the lightsaber forms. You'll recognize their names almost immediately. So I'll explain those characters later on. So the characters that I decided to bring in from the Galactic Civil War would be Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Ezra Bridger, Kanan Jarrus. From Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I decided to incorporate Cal Kestis with his lightsaber staff that can split into 2 sabers. I thought that would be a very interesting dynamic, and they already have a character like that in Soul Calibur named Gruh. So he would be a pretty interesting basis for that, alongside just throwing force powers into it. I also included the second sister from Jedi Fallen Order. I thought that, you know, if we're going to put Cal in there, we should have the antagonist from Fallen Order in there as well. I added the Grand Inquisitor from Star Wars Rebels, just mostly because I thought he was a really cool character. And then I also have Bo-Katan with her Darksaber and Din Djarin with the Beskar Spear and Darksaber. And I'll explain those characters in a little bit. So don't worry. I want to get through the entire roster first. For the Clone Wars, which is going to be the most fun, obviously, because this is where most of the characters are coming from, we have General Grievous. And the way I see Grievous is like he's going to be like a power-based character when he uses 2 lightsabers, and a speed-based character. And when I say speed, mostly like speed and attack, not necessarily speed and movement, when he uses 4 lightsabers. So you could actually switch modes and flip between 2 lightsabers and 4 lightsabers, and that would change his attack style. So he does less damage with the 4 lightsabers, but he can do more combos. Obviously, with 4 lightsabers, you'd be able to hit more often. I also have Count Dooku, Asajj Ventress, Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul, Darth Sidious, and I put Darth Sidious in here and not Emperor Palpatine because I like the idea of having a younger Sidious who is not scarred, who is more likely to use a lightsaber. So I'm thinking Sidious could potentially use a normal lightsaber, just like the single saber that he uses in Star Wars Episode 3, but could probably pull out his second saber and do double lightsaber attacks for some of his moves, kind of like when he was fighting Darth Maul and Savage Opress. Let's see, I also have Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, Shaak Ti, Aayla Secura, and Pre Vizsla. You could probably throw Savage Opress in there as well. I didn't, but there is a strong argument to be made that you could probably put him in there, and he'd be kind of a fun character as well. And again, I'll explain Pre Vizsla in a little bit. And from the sequels, I only have 2 characters from the sequels. I got Rey, and I got Kylo Ren, because those are the 2 most logical. 2 other characters I could see being added just for fun would be Starkiller or Galen Marek. I consider them separate characters because Galen only used 1 lightsaber and Starkiller used 2. As well as the alternate version of Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith, the game. If we're altering the timeline, then we may as well start throwing in, like, potential alternate histories, because I feel like that would be an interesting and compelling way of adding new characters. I see this alternate version of Anakin having some of Darth Vader's Force Power moveset alongside maybe Force Lightning. Since he's not cybernetic, he'd be able to use Force Lightning at least with his left hand. And he'd still maintain Anakin Skywalker's aggressive fighting style because since he is not in the suit, he's not encumbered. But, you know, they'd just be for fun, but I could see them being added as just, you know, additional characters. Whether or not Red Lightsaber Anakin would actually be a completely separate character, or just like a boss character, I'm not sure, but it'd be kind of fun to play as him. Now, just for the record, they are not going to be the only ones there either, because I feel like you could probably incorporate Yoda and I would say Snoke, just to give Snoke a little bit more time. The reason why I put these guys in there, but they're not going to be combat characters, they'd be more like advisors or like overseers for the light side or the dark side paths, is primarily because not only are they like close to the same sort of relevance and importance for their faction, but also they're the two characters that should not get involved in fights. Yoda is one of the most skilled fighters in the Jedi Order, but from a gameplay standpoint, he's also one of the most broken. We saw this in Soul Calibur 4. We do not want another incident of Soul Calibur 4. So I would say that Yoda should probably sit on the sidelines and basically just be a character that only appears in cutscenes, not a character that you fight. The same thing with Snoke. He's going to appear in cutscenes, he's going to communicate with you probably telepathically or through communicators or whatever, but he's not going to be a character that you're going to fight. The roster is already pretty diverse as it is, and you can easily make it more diverse with some minor alterations to character designs. For instance, Luke Skywalker, for example, could have 3 costumes. His outfit from The Empire Strikes Back, when he dueled Darth Vader and Bespin, his Return of the Jedi / Mandalorian attire, and the Force projection version he used against Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi. I use that one specifically because of a game mode that I have in mind that I'll explain here in a little bit. Rey, similarly, could have all 3 costumes that she used from The Force Awakens all the way through The Rise of Skywalker, with The Force Awakens and Last Jedi ones using the blue lightsaber and The Rise of Skywalker one with her yellow lightsaber. Kylo Ren could have both a masked and unmasked appearance, with his 3rd appearance being Ben Solo with the blue lightsaber. Note, Ben Solo would still have the exact same attacks as Kylo Ren because it's literally the same character. He just wouldn't have the crossguard saber. He'd have the blue lightsaber he used against the Knights of Ren at the end of that movie. Obi-Wan could have his Episode 3 robes and his Clone Wars armor, as well as Old Ben being his 3rd outfit. Anakin could have his Episode 2 haircut and outfit, his Episode 3 outfit, and his Clone Wars attire. Ahsoka could have her twin green, twin blue, and twin white lightsabers, each one having different outfits from the Clone Wars Season 3 through 5, Season 7, and Rebels / Mandalorian, respectively. Vader could be used with or without a cape, similar to Soul Calibur 4, or possibly have a battle-damaged helmet for his 3rd attire. I think you get the idea. You can make some interesting alterations to these characters, like the Mandalorians could have both their helmets on and off, such like that. Maybe Din Djarin has his original armor from Season 1, and then the Beskar Mando armor for Season 2. You could make some different things for all these characters in order to try and give a little bit more of a different feel to them. It would make for some interesting storylines for this next game mode I'm about to talk about. Because these attires aren't entirely meaningless. I foresee not just multiple story modes being used with them, but also a game mode where you reenact famous duels from the movies or TV show. These fights would be used to unlock various things, such as the 3rd outfit for specific characters. I could also see a game mode, and they could even use this in the story, taking a page from Dragon Ball FighterZ and Soul Calibur 2, where you select a team of 3 characters and put them against 3 opponents in an elimination-style rules. Or, if they got really ambitious, make it similar to Tekken Tag Tournament or Dragon Ball FighterZ or Marvel vs. Capcom, where you swap characters in mid-battle and can call for assists. That would actually be kind of cool. Some of you might have noticed that Din, Bo-Katan, and Pre Vizsla are on this list, and I told you I'd explain. They're not mistakes. To give some variety to the roster, all 3 of these characters would be able to duel with the Darksaber and various weapons like blasters, razor darts, like the ones that Pre used against Darth Maul, whistling birds, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, jetpacks, etc. I see Din using both the Beskar Spear as his main melee weapon, with the ability to take out the Darksaber and swipe at opponents. I'm seeing him similar to Hilde from Soul Calibur, who uses a spear and a short sword. So maybe he attacks with the spear as his heavy attack and the sword as his light attack, so aka vertical or horizontal. And if you hold down the buttons, you can charge up how powerful the attack's going to be. Just like Hilde. I could see him actually working very well as a Hilde-style character. Bo could use the Darksaber and her energy shield that she has on her gauntlet that we see during the Clone Wars. And Kree might be more offensively based with his tech, using it much like Soul Calibur 6 used Geralt from The Witcher. So where Geralt used all of his sigils, Kree would use like his flamethrower or stun darts or something like that in order to try and get the upper hand in a battle. Since the High Republic also just launched, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these characters wind up in the game's roster as maybe DLC later on. And since we already have confirmed that Darth Revan in some way, shape, or form is canon as of The Rise of Skywalker thanks to one of their companion guides, it would be fantastic to have both Jedi Knight Revan, I see him using just his single purple lightsaber, and Darth Revan using his purple and red sabers in the game. Since the Force is being attacked from all sides in all timelines by Darth Malefus, that means that you could potentially bring in characters from any era. Doesn't have to be specifically the movies or the TV shows. Or, if they don't want to use Revan as two separate characters, I could see Revan having his Jedi Knight and Darth robes as separate costumes, though I wouldn't be complaining if they did put him as two separate characters. I mean, the fighting styles that Jedi Knight Revan and Darth Revan use are very different, and I would love to see them, like, emphasized as different characters. And, of course, by bringing in Revan, you could also make both KOTOR and Star Wars The Old Republic at least loosely canon as well. Seeing Bastila Shan, Darth Malak, Darth Malgus, Satele Shan, Kira Carson, Lord Scourge, Darth Sion, Darth Nihilus, Lana Beniko, and several other Jedi and Sith that are from those games enter the fray would be astounding. And they have a massive pool of characters to choose from there. And if you remember mentioning the Eternal Emperor earlier, most people would immediately think Palpatine from The Rise of Skywalker, but there is another Eternal Emperor to be had, Valkorion, the last face of the ancient Sith pureblood Tenebrae, who ruled over the Sith Empire as Vitiate for thousands of years, 8,000 years, not thousands of years. He was almost exactly 1,000 years before he ditched it to create the Eternal Empire of Zakuul. This is told in Star Wars The Old Republic and its later expansions. Valkorion is one of the most powerful Force users to have ever existed in all of Star Wars, so it would be possible that if you're roping up the power of the Eternal Emperor into the fray, Darth Malefus might be focusing not on Palpatine, but Valkorion. And if that's the case, the possibility of bringing in Valkorion's son and daughter, Arkin and Valen, alongside his wife, Senya, is pretty high. And Senya, I believe in Star Wars The Old Republic, actually has a lightsaber pike named after her. I think it's called Senya's light pike or something like that. Although she doesn't naturally use it in the game, it would be a very interesting choice to have her as a pike-wielding character. Because as a Knight of Zakuul, Senya would be trained in a lightsaber pike. So she could be the light pike user of the game, similar to like Seung Mina in Soul Calibur. All in all, I think this is a possible goldmine for Star Wars, and it would be a wonderful addition to any fighting game lineup. Even with just the original roster, before you start implementing all these additional characters from other media, I see great things happening with this. But let me know what you think. Would you like to see a Soul Calibur style Star Wars fighting game? And if so, who would you put in it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Drop a like and a comment, and let's get this discussion going. In the meantime, thank you for listening to my idea of mine. This is ArcAlpha12, and I shall see you in the next video.